Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is the forum at St Mary's Cathedral in Glasgow. It's the last day of August in 2025, and I am joined by the Rev Canon Sarah Shaw. Now, Sarah has been here for a little while now. She came to St Mary's at Pentecost, so she's not very new, but I still think that you're still called the new Vice Provost by people. And this is the first opportunity that there's been to have a forum conversation and just a chat about you and give you the opportunity to say a little bit about yourself. So Sarah, a very warm welcome to St Mary's. This is the first forum that not only that you've been to, that you're participating in, but the first one you've actually seen. So a very warm welcome. Sarah, let me start with something really, really easy. Why are you a priest?
Oh, well, I began to feel called, I suppose, in my 30s when I came into the Anglican Church quite late, as it happens, like many other people, really quite late on. And I joined the Anglican Church actually in Rome, of all places, when I was teaching English there for a year. And
that's quite a full-on thing to do, to go to Rome and join the Anglican Church. That's a really special thing. I love that.
And I was really drawn to the liturgy, like many people are, and I know there will be people here resonating with that. It was the liturgy and the way in which you can enter into a service and you are invited to respond. And of course, every service, every Sunday, we finished with communion. And I think I then realised it was the church that I felt really at home in. And this is going to sound really bad, but I felt, yeah, this is how church should be. I don't really feel like that. Of course I don't. I recognise there's huge diversity in how people worship, but at that time it seemed to be the thing that called me back into church. And then when I came back to Scotland, I joined a small Episcopal church in Fife and got really involved. And as I got involved, felt more and more that I wanted to really be in church all the time and serving God there.
So you said that you came back to church, so you'd had a bit of time away, but what kind of church experience did you have when you were young?
So I grew up in an evangelical free church, quite a brethren church, I suppose, looking back at it now. And of course, from that, one of the excellent things about that was experiencing so much Bible input. So then when I came back to church in my 30s and read the Bible all the way through, it was like coming back to a good friend. And I did do that thing of reading it all the way through, which isn't always recommended, but actually seemed to work for me at that time. So.
Yeah. I think it's very striking that we keep appointing clergy who did not grow up as Anglicans, and we keep attracting people who did not grow up as Anglicans as well. So very many people here will resonate with that experience of perhaps not knowing quite why, or perhaps finding it unexpected that they should end up worshipping this way. I mean, what we've been doing this morning, celebrating the Eucharist together, and the things that you find yourself doing here, you know, when you're on at 9 o'clock and singing the Angelus, or whether you're swinging a thurible or that kind of thing, that is not what the people who taught you the faith originally would ever have really guessed would happen to you, is it?
No, and I think I really first became aware of that when I was at Christ Church and realised I needed to do something with oil or too much wine after the service. And I knew the thing to do, which was really the only thing I could do, which was to pour it into the remembrance garden. And seeing people walking by and them thinking, what's she doing? And I knew what I was doing and why. But, you know, that kind of thing, you know, makes me aware, I suppose, that I'm in a really different place, because that just wouldn't have been a thing where I was when I was young.
So you joined the church again, you came back to Fife, you joined a congregation in Fife, and you didn't just stay in that congregation though, did you? You had other experience in Fife of the church. Tell us about, well, first of all, tell us about what jobs you had around that time, and then what your first job in the church was, because I think people might be interested in that.
Yeah, so I was teaching, a variety of subjects at Fife College, so mostly working with young adults, many of whom were from quite difficult backgrounds, and that actually felt like quite a strong calling. So it was, you know, leaving that was to come into ministry. There was some continuity, but also a sense of I would miss that. It's been a joy actually to be here and to be, encountering young people again, and particularly getting to know the 20s and 30s group. And I know I'm going to meet lots of students soon as well, so that's really exciting.
Sarah's living in Woodlands and hasn't actually experienced the universities being back yet. So I've been telling her that it's going to change in a few weeks' time. It's going to feel a wee bit different.
Yeah, it won't be quite as quiet, I don't think. And as I got more and more involved with the church where I was, and then got accepted for training for ministry, I then spent some time working in the diocesan office in Perth for the Diocese of St Andrews. So I spent a year there working with Bishop David Chillingworth, doing Casting the Net, which was that diocese mission initiative of that era. In fact, when I was clearing out stuff to move here, I kept finding stuff related to casting the net. That was quite interesting. It was a lovely time, actually, and it was really formational because I spent time with others going into congregations and helping them think about their mission and their future. And it was a real privilege and a joy, and getting to know people in that way in different churches around the diocese as well.
Okay. But then you moved into Edinburgh Diocese. I mean, you were ordained...
I was ordained in Edinburgh and got married to the curate at St Mary's Cathedral in Edinburgh. So I moved into Edinburgh and right next to that other cathedral, and which was really lovely. And spent 3 years as a curate at St Cuthbert's in Colinton, which is on the south side of Edinburgh.
And first job is always important. First job on your own is always a big thing in a priest's life. If you become a priest in charge or a rector somewhere, that place also forms you, doesn't it? And you went to Falkirk, to Christ Church in Falkirk. Tell us what they taught you there, or how you grew there. What did you become when you were there?
They were very good. They are a congregation who are very good to clergy. So they were very kind and welcoming and supportive. And of course, I was coming there as a curate, and I'd say they cared for me. They looked after me. They gave me time and space to grow into the priest I was being called to be, and that was really precious. And as here, there were many good lay people, and I've often said that. As a priest, we learn so much from those who are in the congregation, through the way in which people suffer adversity, the way in which people show such commitment to the church, the way in which people keep going in their prayer lives and in discipleship. I think all those things speak so much to a priest. And actually, I don't know whether you find this as well, that really encourages me in my role and helps keep me going in my ministry with you. And I do think there's something about that, and perhaps I learnt that at Christ Church, that we minister together, that we learn together, that we're going on a journey together. It's not just about us standing up there telling you how it should be. It's very much something that we all do together. And of course, also in mission and outreach to the world as well.
Right, never mind the church. How do you have fun?
Well, so Willie and I are both bird watchers, and the boys inevitably have to be bird watchers as well, because it sort of runs in families. So we love nature and going out into the hills and walking. I love a cafe. One of the joys of coming to the West End here has been discovering all the amazing cafes. We still haven't got round them all because I've been quite busy. I love animals, and I can be quite soppy about animals, and it's been lovely to discover those of you who are also soppy about animals, and I'm looking forward to our pet blessing service, which we'll have in Creation Tide. The outdoors, animals, cafes, walking, all of those things, I'd say. Art galleries as well. I love art, so going and looking at art is really important to me and touches me quite deeply. So it's been a joy to discover Kelvin Grove and the Hunterian Art Gallery as well. And I know there are others I need to go and see.
One of the things that's been really lovely about the last few weeks is your excitement at coming to Glasgow, because it's very obvious. And I mean, people either get Glasgow or they don't, but you just have kind of jumped into it and obviously love being here. You obviously love it. What is it about the city that just makes you... Because there's joy there. I mean, I can see that. It's very obvious. What's that about?
Well, I think that, there is something about the way it looks. I mean, I've always found it amazing to drive through Glasgow on the M8 and and I remember telling the boys about this, when we drive through Glasgow, you'll see all the buildings, and the top of them will be at the same height as we are or higher, and it's amazing. So there's something quite exciting about the way Glasgow is as a city, and then you've got the river, well, you've got two rivers, the Clyde, the Kelvin, of course we've got the canal nearby, and really amazing architecture. And I often say to people, you need to look up. When you're going around the centre of Glasgow, look up, because it's truly amazing. And of course, the people you encounter, and we've known such friendliness and warmth and hospitality here. And where we are is really interesting culturally as well. So, we've seen things that we just hadn't seen or experienced before, which has been great. And one of the things I really love, and it's a bit similar to a cat's purr, I love a cat's purr, is the rumble of the subway under the cathedral. I just love that. To me, that's tremendously exciting. So, and also this is a place we're discovering as a family, with the boys old enough to discover it with us, which is really exciting.
Yeah, that's a nice thing. That's a really nice thing. So I remember alluding to this in the sermon that I preached when you came here, but quite a few people won't actually have been at that service. So let's just go on to you coming here and what it was that attracted you to come here, because we were looking for a vice provost for a little while. I mean, it did go on a bit, and then I got this phone call. So just tell us a bit about that. I did actually keep the message, the answer phone message, where Sarah called, and it was so tentative it was untrue. There was about a minute and a half of I think I want to talk. I don't know, well, and I did actually think about playing that as part of the sermon when you came, but I thought it was too cruel. It was unbelievably cruel. But you were a bit tentative about it, but there was something there, clearly something that spoke to you, that you had heard about this job. Now, just tell people a little bit about how you heard about the job in a way that made you make that phone call. What was it that actually made you think, this could be the thing that comes next? Because lots of people think about what's coming next at different points in their lives, but something made you actually reach for the phone.
I think it was the post which talked about, and I think you started it something like, here's the thing, I've got all these people joining us at St Mary's, and they need to feel welcome and included and find a way of belonging here, and I need someone to help me with that job. That was probably the advert that really stood out for me, and I think that was in about February, was it?
It was after one of our rough guides. I remember posting that on Facebook, and what I said was something like, we'd just done a rough guide, and there were, 13 or 14 people there, and none of them, well, there were two of them came from specifically from an Anglican background. They were both Nigerians. They knew exactly about the Anglican Church. Nobody else did at all about Anglicanism or the Episcopal Church. And they were all people that were really interesting. Some of them were asylum seekers, some of them were not. Some of them were students, some of them were in first jobs. And it was a really interesting group of people that if people like that are going to find a way into this congregation, I knew I couldn't do that on my own. And that's one of the reasons why the post of Vice Provost, I think, really developed, is that the Provost can't do this job on their own. And when I came here to St Mary's, I was the only full-time priest. And I think that I spent my first couple of years proving that didn't really work. And I know that provosts in the past had struggled in that role, and it took me a little while to work out one of the things that wasn't working, and that was that you couldn't actually do it all yourself. So for me, it meant trying to give much more recognition to lay people in the congregation exercising their own ministries, but also alongside that, having quite a confident group of clergy who were working together. I'm somebody who really likes working with other people, so to me that's a rewarding thing to do. And that's why this idea of people working together has developed. Are you a lone ranger? Do you work on your own, or do you like to be?
Well, one of the things that I had to think about was having been at Christchurch and been more or less on my own in terms of being director. Although I had an excellent new lay reader actually who joined me in the last year, but was thinking about how's that going to be, because I'm going to be in a team. And actually, we had got to know each other a little bit.
We didn't know one another very well, did we? Surprisingly.
I think I knew you from phoning you up and asking you about, I've got Nigerian people joining my congregation, I've got asylum seekers joining my congregation. And
we talked about that, haven't we?
We talked about that and how we make people feel included and welcome and all of that. So we had spoken in that context.
But we didn't know one another very well. Surprisingly, for a small church,
No.
Sarah and I didn't know one another as well as we often know people around the province, but we hadn't really met.
I had to have a proper interview. I should say that.
You had to have a proper interview, and I think that you contacted one or two people who knew St Mary's quite well to see whether this was a good place to come. Is that fair?
Well, yes, and of course I'd spoken to Oliver, who was my friend, but probably one of the things that delayed my applying was thinking about Oliver and his amazing voice, and thinking, well, I can't sing like that. I did think about applying, but it was really that point at which I thought, oh, that really sounds like me. That sounds exactly what I love doing, helping people to feel part of a congregation and looking for where their skills and gifts might be and how they can be developed. So that was the thing. And even then, I didn't have time to apply immediately, and I left it for another few days. Hence, when I phoned up and I was so tentative, I just thought I'd blown it, really. I thought, well, for one thing, it's too late. For another thing, my voicemail message was not strong and confident. But anyway.
It really is interesting, though, how vocation is often something that repeats in our lives. I mean, you talked a little bit about working with young adults, helping them develop their life skills and that kind of thing. I think it's really interesting how vocation often makes much more sense looking backwards than it does looking forwards. If you look back at the things that have given you life and joy, there are themes, aren't there?
Yeah. Yes, and I do really enjoy being with young. I enjoy being with people of all ages. One of the lovely things about church is, you could have somebody in your congregation who's 100, and you could have someone who's, a few weeks old, and then everybody in between. That's just lovely. That's family. To me, that's how church should be. But I think maybe part of the reason why I enjoy working with people in that kind of younger adult age group is I remember how hard it can be actually to be a younger adult and still, finding your way in life, still working out who you are and where you want to be and all of that. And of course, in a city like this, if you're coming here on your own, or people are often coming without any family or without anybody else. So I suppose feeling a calling to help them feel that sense of belonging and a place to nurture their faith and discover things about themselves does give me joy, yes.
So let's just talk a little bit about people who are looking at churches at the moment and thinking about whether to come, thinking about whether to explore what's inside them. We have this whole thing here with the welcome cards. I stand up every week and say, if you want to connect with St Mary's, if you're finding a way in, fill in a welcome card. Now, most of those these days find their way onto your desk. It's the Vice Provost particular role to take the welcome cards and work out either what contact needs to be made by you or by somebody else, but they often come across your desk. So even in the few weeks that you've been here, you've already started doing that and started listening to the stories of people who are looking towards church. What are some of the themes that you feel are developing for people like that at the moment? Because I personally discern a bit of a change that's been coming for a little while, but there is a change in the way people are looking at church and what it's for. But what are you finding? And maybe I'll say a bit more about that in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is how the world is. You know, that there is a narrative of division, and you know, people are being put against each other. Actually, it feels quite deliberately so, and that there, you know, we live in a world where there is a lot of fear and violence, and I think some of the people we have coming along are feeling like this is a place where things are different. You know, as we heard in the sermon this morning, where everything is turned upside down, where status and power are not what matter, you know, and where everybody belongs and everybody finds a place. So I think there's some of that. But also I think people are looking for belonging, and belonging, you know, in a more positive way, but also seeking faith, and sometimes from a different church background altogether, where they, for whatever reason, haven't ended up feeling at home, or from a completely non-faith background. So people with no baggage about, you know, having been made to go to church when they were young, or any of that, and discovering a mystery, but a mystery that finds then that there are truths, and that there is faith, and that there are things that they can believe in that are good and true and right, and very countercultural. So I think
I agree
things.
with that, and I also experience a sense of longing for wonder, and for the transcendent, and for churches which have big spaces seem to be doing surprisingly well at the moment at attracting people, and that's really interesting. Places that have a sense of wonder and awe about them seem to be attracting people. And there's some writing and thinking going on about that amongst clerics and theologians. People are starting to talk about something called a quiet revival, where young people are actually much more open to looking at faith, and it's those kinds of things that are the way in. And sometimes philosophy as well. Sometimes people have been reading philosophers or reading theology before they come to church. And that's a really, really interesting experience. It used to be that almost all your experience of talking to people when they came to church was about the church that they were running away from, or had experienced before that hadn't worked out, or that kind of thing. I don't have that narrative so strongly. It's much more about looking for holiness, belonging, awe, wonder, transcendence, beauty. All of those seem really strong in that conversation. And churches like this up and down the country are talking about the fact that people are looking this way again. And that's a bit of a surprise, I think. But that certainly rings true for me about what we're going through at St Mary's at the moment, because we are seeing a lot of people. We're seeing younger people. There is a particular theme up and down the country. People are saying that young men are coming to church more than they used to do. And I find that really, really interesting.
Yeah,
lots of people don't know quite what to make of it, but it is, you had that experience at Christ Church in Falkirk as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's surprising, you know, it's the scenario you never think is going to happen, that young people are just going to arrive at your door, you know. You never imagine that when you're training for ministry, and it is actually happening, and it's a joy and wonderful.
And not just St Mary's in Glasgow either. I'm hearing that story from a few of our churches around the city. And people not always knowing why they've turned up, but wanting to work it out, wanting to experience this thing that happens here. And people, you know, enjoy experiences. So, you know, one of the things that, you know, is offered now to us as a gift to give somebody is an experience. Well, you know, when you come in to somewhere like this, it is an experience, and it's one that you can either, you know, sit at the back and just perhaps hopefully enjoy, or one that you can actually engage with and be involved with really quite easily and simply. And I think that might be part of it. And then, of course, as people go on and they become more involved and experience more of that, sometimes they find what they're looking for. Let's just draw the conversation back to you and coming here. What's new to you here that you've just never done before? Well, either in church or in the city, really. What just feels like something completely new?
Well, there's certainly parts of the liturgy. So singing the Angelus, that was new and unexpected, and things like there's parts of the liturgy and things that I haven't had the opportunity to do before, because this is a cathedral, So there's that.
I remember when I came here, I'd been here a few weeks, and there was so much going on to try and understand and cope with, that it was about 3 weeks in when I was conducting evensong, and I remember just thinking, this choir's really good. And I kind of knew that intellectually, but there was that experience of being suddenly lost in the worship.
Well, there's that. So suddenly. So if I look a bit, like I'm not doing what I'm meant to be doing at any point, it might be because I'm listening to the singing and, just being completely lifted up by it, and it's really wonderful. So that has been a real blessing. And actually the bells as well, so between the choir and the bell ringers, when I came back from holiday, from being off for a couple of weeks, I came into the office to get something, and as I came along Great Western Road, the light was beautiful in the west, and I could hear the bells because the bell ringers were ringing, and it was just, how am I here? This is amazing. So, there's been moments like that. It's been really wonderful. And maybe the other thing, maybe something that surprised me as well is how friendly and kind. I mean, I don't mean that I expected people to be unkind, but when you come to a much bigger congregation and a gathered congregation in a city, I didn't necessarily think I would get to know people so quickly and so easily, and I want to thank you, actually, all of you, for making that side of things really, really easy and lovely for me, so thanks.
So, just give us core Sarah. What makes you tick? What makes you excited when you wake up in the morning?
I am a people person. You probably noticed that. So I'm not going to be saying at the end of Sunday, well, I might say I'm tired, but it wouldn't be from meeting people. It would never be from that. I love meeting people, and I love engaging.
Because Sundays are quite full on here. I mean,
Sundays are full on,
yeah.
So, but if I'm tired, it's tired happy. It's not. I need to be on my own now and have some space away from people. I'm never like that. So I'm really blessed not to be like that, because I know that not everyone is like that, but it does make the job easier if you love being around people. It really does. I can be on my own, and I do go on retreat because you're taught that you should go on retreat, and being on a silent retreat I know is very good for me. It's and I can manage it, believe it or not, but what I really love is being around people, and as I say, of all ages, and of course here it's been, and in Glasgow you do literally experience people from all different backgrounds and cultures and languages and all of that, so that's been a real joy for me. So I guess being in a city like this, that's that really, for me, as I am, core Sarah, that's been a real joy.
I think that's really interesting, that idea that spirituality isn't always just about sitting being quiet. Sometimes it is, but it's not always about that. It's very real to me as well. The last retreat I went on was very much not a silent retreat, and I rejoiced in it. I mean, it was a good... It was the last thing I went on was about improv theatre, and it was all about different people sparking off one another, and it was a really exciting week. It was an amazing thing to do.
Yeah.
So, one easy last question, and this is a question that someone once asked me here at St Mary's. They just sidled up to me and said this: how do you pray?
Well, I suppose one of the things that my background gave me was an ability just to pray with words, whatever words were there, and to pray with other people as well. So, I mean, well, like many people, and I'm sure many of you will do this, I feel this, I have this ongoing conversation with God all the time. But I also I suppose coming into a more liturgical tradition. One of the things that I've loved is saying morning prayer, and here, of course, we say it every day, Monday to Saturday, together, which is really special, because I love saying morning prayer, but I I much prefer saying it with others.
It's quite hard to do as a
There's
priest when
something-
you're on your own, I think. I
Yeah.
had the same experience of being in a church where I was likely to be the only person at morning prayer, and I found that really hard to sustain, whereas doing it with other people is
Yeah, and
different.
although you know you're doing it with the Anglican Communion worldwide, actually doing it physically with others is a real joy. So I would say probably, saying morning prayer, but also just praying to God all of the time and trying to do those things that I tell other people to do, giving thanks for the good things, and also just praying with other people. I really love, and when Willie and I pray together, obviously that's a blessed time as well. So I'd say praying with others is probably what I love doing most in terms of prayer.
Okay. I'm going to round this up. That's your half hour, which it soon goes by. I know that there are people who will want to pick up on this conversation and chat to you, not just today, now, but probably in the next few weeks, because people are still getting to know you and still enjoying getting to know you and enjoying the fact that you're enjoying being here. Because your enthusiasm for Glasgow and for St Mary's, it does shine out of you. So it's really good. Sarah, I want to say thank you for sharing and the questions I ask, I told Sarah that I wouldn't ask anything difficult and I wouldn't ask anything tricky. And then, of course, I've asked you questions that have actually enabled you to share something of yourself with us. And that's a real gift to us. So I want to say thank you, Sarah, for sharing that with us today. Thank you for being here, and a very, very warm welcome still to St.
Thank you,
Mary's.
Kelvin. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.